Recently in my Algebra 1 class, we did a unit on exponential functions, and tonight I was reading an interesting letter by a man named Warren Buffett that he wrote to his shareholders, and it was released just today, actually. And I thought this would be a good example of exponential functions in the real world that some of my students might find interesting since we did a project that revolved around saving for retirement. So Warren Buffett, in case you don't know, is this man pictured here. He's quite famous, actually. He was born August 30th, 1930. He's currently worth $76 billion, making him one of the richest men in the world. And interestingly, he has promised to give away 99% of his wealth to charity. Although when you get this wealthy, $76 billion, it actually becomes a real challenge to get rid of your money. He's got a very interesting life. I would encourage anyone listening to this to read a little bit about him, but especially my students. Things like one of his first jobs was he spent $25 buying a pinball machine. Within a few months, he owned several pinball machines which he had bought from the earnings of the first one, and he ended up selling that business to a man for $1,200. So he went from $25 to $1,200. And you have to remember, this is back, if he was born in 1930, this would be in the 1940s. So pretty fascinating. But what I wanted to specifically show you guys was this is the beginning of the letter which he wrote to his shareholders. So to the shareholders of Berkshire Hathaway Incorporated, Berkshire's gain in net worth during 2016 was $27.5 billion, which increased the per share book value of both our Class A and Class B stock by 10.7%. Over the last 52 years, that is, since present management took over, per share book value has grown from $19 to $172,108, a rate of 19% compounded annually. Now, I have not been able to find a graph from 1952 to now. The best I've been able to come up with is from the year 1980 until now, but it still gives you a good idea. So if we look at this graph, from March 1st, 1980, you see the date here in the far left corner. You could have bought one share of Berkshire Hathaway on March 1st, 1980 for $260. That share today would be worth $255,040. This is most certainly an exponential function. So I'm sure there are a few people out there who were smart enough to do that back in 1980. So you could imagine if you had spent just a few $1,000s then, what your shares would be worth today. I hope this was something interesting for you guys. If you're curious about what it is exactly that Berkshire Hathaway does, this is their Wikipedia page, and it shows the businesses or companies that they own, some of which are going to be very familiar to most people. For example, one of the most famous ones is Geico, the big insurance company. They own 100% of Geico. Another one that you might have heard of, Helzberg Diamonds. What's another famous one here that they own completely? Many of these are companies which my students probably haven't heard of. They also own a minority of many other companies like American Airlines. They own 4.24%, American Express over 16%, Apple they own a little bit of, John Deere, the tractor and farm equipment company, Goldman Sachs, General Motors, etc., etc., Kraft Heinz, ketchup. Well, they do a lot of other things too, but famous for their ketchup. So you can see here that he went from very humble beginnings to being the head of a company that's worth hundreds of billions of dollars. So Warren Buffett, interesting man and a good example of a real world exponential function. Hope you enjoyed this video. If anything here has sparked your interest, you just Google Warren Buffett, you'll find tons of information about it.